Hi everyone, and welcome back again to seminar number 3. Don't worry, if you haven't seen seminar number 1 and 2, that is not a prerequisite or anything for this. You pretty much take what you want. Okay, if something's of interest to you, great. Watch it. If it's not, then keep scrolling. Okay, cool. So Mindful Bites, we're very busy people. Counsellors, teachers, those that work in mental health space, education support officers. We are often on the front line of working with young people, and there's not a lot of time often for professional learning. The last thing we sort of often want to do is set aside 7.5 hours or whatever it might be, or 12 hours or whatever, for professional learning. I mean, we do that because we're professionals, but this is an opportunity to just take some quick CPD points. Okay, usually the seminars go for about half an hour. Alrighty. So Mindful Bites is the name of the program, name of the seminars. So this seminar is about self-care. It is designed for you as a professional, okay, to look after your own self-care and the importance of that and what constitutes self-care and what doesn't, all right? But you can actually take the various practices that you see in this and apply it in your setting as well for others, okay? But don't forget to not, we don't want people neglecting their own self-care. All right. If we're telling others to take care of themselves, then we need to practice what we preach. Okay. I want to introduce you to self-care, of course, but also what's called the PLEASE concept. Right. It's essentially an acronym, and again, it is a DBT acronym. All right. And it's like a nice little checklist for essentially, I guess, checking in on how we're tracking with regards to looking after ourselves. Alrighty, so I'll break that open for you today. So without further ado, let's get going. Okay, so my name is Michael and I am Managing Director at Edge Counselling and Psychotherapy Adelaide. I offer counselling, I'm obviously counselling and psychotherapy work. I do cognitive coaching to support people, particularly with employment, consultancy work, early years professional, early years support, because I have a teaching background, of course, as well. Okay, taught all the way through from reception, the little tiny people in schools, right up to the big people, which are the 18-year-old year 12s. Okay, so across the Art of 12 continuum. We're located, Edge Counselling and Psychotherapy Adelaide is located in Salisbury, 55 Park Terrace. Look for the big yellow sign. Alrighty, let's keep going. So today, remember, it's bite-sized pieces of information, bite-sized opportunities so that you can take it, run with it, apply it. Alrighty, it's not going to be heavy content. Okay, I want to make it as practical as possible. I want stuff that's useful for people, particularly busy people who have not got time to sit through and sift through very detailed, complex seminars. Okay, we want it practical so we can apply it straight away. Okay, so our learning intention, we want to gain some insight today into the importance of self-care for our own well-being. Okay, and be able to clarify what constitutes genuine self-care practices. Sometimes we might think that we're doing things that are in line with self-care when in fact they're not. Okay, and I'll break that open for you today. Again, trigger warning. I think this seminar today is there won't be a lot of heavy mental health type content, all right? But again, please look after yourself, look after your own self-care. If you need a moment, step away. Please surround yourself with those that are closest to you, friends, family. If you need to reach out for support with a various professional, please do so. Okay. You're more than welcome to give me a call or flick me an email if you have any questions about any of the content. All right. Or if you'd like to book an appointment as well, that is fine. I work with young children from about 4 years old right up to I work with adults as well. Okay. So children, adolescents, and also adults. Okay, so what do we mean by self-care? Okay, it's a word that often gets thrown around. What does it mean? Well, self-care is about making a deliberate choice to nurture the various aspects that make up us as people. Okay, so I'll say that again, a deliberate choice. Okay, we need to actually schedule in time for self-care every day. All righty. So what do I mean by the aspects of self? Well, these are some ideas around that. Okay. And I often like to break this open with clients when I'm doing this, and we put it on like a whiteboard, and we go 4 columns: physical, psychological, social, and spiritual. Yeah. And we together brainstorm what is currently happening for the client in terms of self-care under those various categories, right? Then we put together a bit of a wish list and go, okay, what would we like to, in an ideal world, or maybe not even in an ideal world, maybe just what would you like to include in this? What are some possibilities? Okay, so physical self is an aspect of self, looking after our physical body. So we brainstorm with clients, well, what are the sorts of physical things that you're currently doing? Okay. And what are some possibilities? Okay. So for example, exercise, going to the gym, yoga, stretching, running, a range of playing sport, of course, anything where we are moving our physical body. Okay, it might even be even connecting with technology. So maybe that particular technology where we, like, for example, I think it's called a Wii, where we move our body and play a sport on the screen, as long as we are moving the body. Okay, walking, fishing, anything like that, going out on the river. Okay, that's all physical self that we're looking after. Okay, we're making deliberate effort to nurture and look after the physical self. Yeah. Okay, the next one is our psychological self. Okay, so this is a complex, we know that psychology is a complex concept. All right, it contains, well, it includes lots of different systems. So it can be things like our thinking, our emotions, our behaviors. Okay, so our psychological self, we could nurture our psychological self through things that are to do with our mind, essentially. All right, so let's brainstorm some ideas. And these are straight off the top of my head at the moment. All right, so things like, okay, lots of people enjoy reading the paper, reading books, doing crosswords, mindfulness, okay, mindfulness, meditation, anything, or engaging in a hobby, things like engaging in art and craft, or or maybe going into the shed and building something out of timber. All of those things we have to think about, we have to use our mind. Okay, they have a psychological element to them. Okay. Also, don't forget that things like visiting a counselor or a psychologist to talk about the things that are happening in our life at the moment. That is nurturing our psychological self, okay? Engaging with our friends and being able to talk with people about what's happening in our life. Okay, and of course, that then crosses over with the social self, which I'll unpack a little bit in a moment. Is there anything else you can think of with regards to the psychological self? I'm thinking that's probably just a few that I've been able to break open, but anything where we are engaged in our hobbies, think about music as well. That is a complex process. Learning, for example, a musical instrument, having to follow the notes and learn a song, for example, on a guitar or on a piano. Any musical instrument is definitely, if we're engaging in that, that is definitely a psychological activity. Okay. I also had another one with regards to that. Anything where we might be bettering ourselves or learning. It could be cooking. We might be putting together a new recipe. That is psychological self. There are so many things where we are using our mind to achieve something, all right? And they also bring us a sense perhaps of enjoyment, okay? Learning, enjoyment. Be mindful with the psychological self if we're thinking that we're going to perhaps engage in something that is very similar to the work that we do. So for example, I can't I really don't think this is self-care. So if I work in a counselling space day in, day out, or if you work in a teaching space day in, day out, and then you go home and read a book all about education, I think it's too similar to the work that you do. And so I don't think that really constitutes self-care. All right. We want to really steer away from anything that is too similar to our line of work. All righty. So I'm not going to go home and pick up a counselling book and read that or a psych journal or something like that and then say that I'm doing self-care just because I'm reading. All righty. So be mindful of some of those activities. And again, there'll be a little bit more information about what constitutes self-care and what does not constitute self-care shortly. Okay. Um, with psychological self as well, I'm just thinking sometimes it doesn't have to always be the things that we choose to take up in our life. It could be the things we choose to actually let go of or not do. So, it might be, okay, well, I'm going to look after my psychological self by not checking my emails after 6 o'clock at night. Okay, because we are way too easily accessible. Okay, to via technology, and we could be checking emails forever. Okay, don't do that. So, after 6:30, that's your time. That's family time. After 6 o'clock, whatever. Um, and if you are, if 6 o'clock is too late, then great, bring it back 4:30, whatever. But remember, for this self-care is about you connecting with of course activities that nurture your sense of self-care, and also it's time for engagement with family and things like that, family, friends. Okay, which then brings me to the next one, which is about social self. So social self, this is we are social beings. We need each other. We connect with each other. We need each other for survival. Yeah. Um, how do we nurture our social self? Okay. So social self, of course, is about connecting with other people, having a conversation with our partner at home, it might be, without the mobile phone being being a distraction. Okay, put that mobile phone away so that it doesn't interfere with your self-care, with your time that you're going to actually engage with the people that matter. Yeah. And of course, in that is you matter, and we're nurturing that sense of social self. Yeah. Engaging with your friends, family, kids, whatever it might be. Okay. What are some other social outlets? It might be clubs that you might be involved in, or extracurricular activities, sporting teams, music, drama, dance, whatever it is, chess club, whatever it is that you are involved in. This is an opportunity, the social self, we're nurturing that. Okay. It might be social self, might be, okay, I'm going to pick up the phone and actually have a chat with someone over the phone. That's nurturing social self. Okay. All right. The last one is spiritual self. Spiritual self can be the religious component, but it does not have to mean religion. Okay. Spiritual self is anything that is greater than us. All right. Some people find that sort of fulfillment, I guess, through practicing their religion. Great, that's nurturing spiritual self. Alrighty, but some people will nurture their spiritual self by going to a footy game, or going for a walk in the forest, or down at the beach, or something that is greater than ourself. All right, notice that, the roaring crowd of a footy game is bigger than us. Okay, so is the beach, so is going for a walk in nature. It might be deliberately noticing things in nature. Okay, being more mindful. Spiritual self definitely can include mindfulness. Okay, and many people engage with meditation. That is certainly both a psychological self and a spiritual self that is being nurtured there. Okay, what I'd really encourage you to do is do the 4 columns for yourself. Okay, physical, psychological, social, and spiritual, and jot down what's currently happening for you. Okay, under each of those headings. Okay, and then ask yourself, what are some possibilities? Okay, how can I bring self-care every day into my life? Okay, so that I'm engaging with something from these 4 categories. Okay, we want to be able to address all 4 categories in I guess, over the space of about a month. Okay, but every day we're engaging with something from those four categories. Yeah. Okay. Um, I want to move on now to this concept called please. And maybe I should have started with please because it's a great little checklist, but it doesn't really matter. Okay. Please is a DBT acronym. Okay. DBT is dialectical behavior therapy, right? Now, please is a great opportunity I guess it's like a bit of a checklist, and it is a reminder about our need for self-care, especially when we start to notice that there's emotional dysregulation. Okay, so why am I feeling emotionally dysregulated? I'm feeling grumpy, I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling upset, or anxious, or depressed, or whatever it might be. Whatever the dysregulation, let's go through the please acronym and work out what's happening for us. Okay, so let's break this open. Please is a little bit like this. The PL stands for physical. All right, so it's the first letter and the last letter of the word physical. So what we're doing here is we're looking at our physical health. Okay, or is there any physical things that are happening for us that might be causing dysregulation in our emotions? So, for example, I'm noticing that I've got a sore throat, or I'm noticing that my back is hurting, or that my left knee is feeling painful, whatever it might be. Those physical components, those physical ailments, may be in fact influencing our sense of being able to regulate our emotions. Okay, we're naturally a little bit more I guess, emotional or perhaps a little bit more dysregulated when we feel unwell. Okay, that is just, yeah, the facts of it. So PL, physical. All right, look for, name anything that's happening for you at a physical level that's making you perhaps feel unwell, or is there pain, or whatever it might be. Okay. Okay. The next component is E. Now, E is for eating. Okay. Now, eating can include this. Um, essentially, we're asking ourselves, am I receiving enough nutrition? Okay. So, what does my eating habits look like? All right. Am I overindulging, or am I not getting enough food? Okay. What are the types of foods I'm putting into my body? Okay. Um, Maybe looking at habits as well. Okay. So am I eating late at night, which might not be so good for then sleep, etc., etc. Okay. Looking at the types of foods. So am I getting a balanced diet essentially? Alrighty. What are the sorts of foods that I'm putting into my body? And something like a food diary can help there. Alrighty, keeping track of just exactly what's going on and what you are putting into your body. Don't forget, eating also includes water and hydration. Okay. Um, when we don't get enough water, okay, that can certainly impact on our emotional state. All right. In fact, yeah, I noticed that with myself as well. When I drink water, I just feel a lot clearer, a lot better in my thinking. Alrighty, it's really good to have the water nearby all the time. So E is eating. All right. Essentially, we're looking at our diet. Yeah. And I'm not going to make this into a big seminar about diet or healthy foods or healthy eating. You can go and Google that. All right. All right. The next one is A. A can be it can be alcohol. All right. But I actually think addictions or anything that we can become overly reliant on. Okay. Um, it may not necessarily be an addiction, but we may be, in fact, overly reliant on certain things. So, for example, well, the number one is alcohol. All right, it's probably the number one. What does that look like? My alcohol intake on a day-to-day basis or on a weekly basis or whatever it might be. Am I binge drinking? Am I drinking every day? How many set of drinks am I consuming? Now, again, I'm not going to turn this into a seminar all about alcohol. You can go away and do that research for yourself with regards to safe levels of drinking, okay? But I do know this, and I do want to share this with you, and that is alcohol, we know, is a depressant, okay? It can make us feel dysregulated even a day later, a day or more later, particularly if we've consumed a large amount of it. Okay, alcohol can increase feelings of depression, and it can also increase feelings of anxiety, even when it's well. When we are well past having the drink. Okay, so it might be the next day or something like that. All right. Even if we've just pushed it a little bit too hard and had that extra glass of wine or whatever it might be, and we can feel pretty ordinary the next day. Okay, so keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on your alcohol intake and be honest with yourself. Remember, please is about you. If we sort of try to cheat it, well, you're really cheating yourself. Okay. So A is about alcohol, but what else could it include? Because I said about addictions. Yeah. Anything we become overly reliant on. So, smoking, it could be any form of alcohol or other drugs, okay? Um, uh, I want to also include screens, okay? We are obviously in a society, in the modern era, where screens, we live day to day, and a lot of our time is spent in front of a screen, yeah? And then we go home, and there's a lot of doom scrolling and stuff like that what we might engage in, particularly when we might go to bed or whatever it might be, and we sit on the phone and we scroll, scroll, scroll. Okay, be super mindful of that. I wonder how that is actually impacting on our on our health. Okay, I know that the screens can become very, very addictive because, well, it's as we scroll, we're getting hit with dopamine. Okay, dopamine is a reward chemical, yeah, in our body. It feels good. So hence we get hit with this dopamine all the time as we're scrolling, yeah. It can be exhausting though. We can have that dopamine where we don't have to work very hard for it because we're just scrolling, and our brain gets absolutely exhausted with all of that dopamine, yeah. Being mindful of the screen use. That is a really common thing, particularly with young people, that they talk to me about their, what's happening for them. And then they, in the next breath, they tell me that they're on screens for like, significant time. They might be 5, 6, 7 hours a night, yeah, into the wee hours of the morning. Right? And really bad for sleep for us. For a start, but also don't forget it can be super, super addictive. Okay. Is there anything else that might fit under A that we can become particularly addicted to? I guess being mindful as well if we were addicted to or we become overly reliant on it might be, are we exhausting our body at the gym? Okay, some people can become very over reliant on that, but there's a range of things that we can become overly reliant on. Okay, and of course that might differ for different people. Okay, the next one I mentioned before about sleep, and that is the S component to please. All right. What does my sleep look like? Am I achieving around about 8.5 hours a night? Don't quote me on that. I think it's around 8, 8.5, 9. Yeah, so am I achieving the right level of sleep? And it might even be more. I think it's more for teenagers because of the growing body. Yeah. Okay. Children and teenagers. So asking ourselves, okay, well, what's my sleep look like? Am I going to bed at a reasonable hour, or am I going to bed after midnight? And then having to get up early in the morning. Okay, or am I sleeping in and it throws out my whole body clock? All right. The last one is E, which is exercise. All right. So, exercise, there is plenty of research to suggest that moderate exercise is exceptionally good for mental health. Yeah, there's even some research to suggest that it can have the same effect. Now, please take what I'm about to say with a pinch of salt, all right? Because we will. I just want to break this open for you. Exercise can have similar effects to antidepressant medication, yeah? But please, please, please do not come off of your antidepressant medication if you are taking that. Please don't do anything like that without the explicit instruction from your doctor, alrighty? But there are journals that have explored this, that exercise, particularly vigorous exercise, that has a great benefit with regards to mental health. Alrighty. So exercise, what does that look like for you? Okay. And remember, it doesn't mean signing up to the gym straight away. Okay. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean going from 0 to 100. It means, okay, well, if I'm at 0, how do I get to 1? All right. So that might mean, okay, I'm going to go for a walk outside, or I'm going to go for a walk around the block. All right. Little manageable pieces. We're not going to go from 0 to the gym because that's destined for failure. All righty. Okie doke. I think that's okay. Please, yeah, I think I've covered everything there. Alrighty, but it's a great little checklist, please. Can give us a lot of data, a lot of information about ourselves, about why we might be feeling emotionally dysregulated. Alrighty, so shared before that we should be engaged in self-care daily. By the end of the month, I said that we should have nurtured each aspect of self. Okay, so just want to break this open with you as well. Some tips. Some people come to me and they say, "Oh, I played video games, or I sat watching Netflix." Okay, I played my video games. I scrolled on social media. It was really relaxing. I'm sorry, that doesn't constitute as self-care. All right. TV, scrolling on social media, playing video games are not regarded as self-care. They are time bandits, and they're just hitting us with easy dopamine. Okay, it's too easy to sit there and do those things. It is much better for us, much better for our mental health, where we get the dopamine that we actually have to work for. All right, so for example, engaging in a sport, engaging in music, engaging in something that's meaningful for us, our hobbies, etc. All right. How we nurture this sense of self, and we nurture this psychological sense of self. Okay, self-care is not necessarily relaxing. If you go to the gym, you know that you're not relaxing, but you are engaging in self-care. Alrighty. Sometimes it might not necessarily feel terribly relaxing, and that is okay. All right. I talked a little bit about reading material. Reading material should not have anything to do with your schoolwork. Okay, with your schoolwork or the work that you're engaged in, taking client records home and reading over and trying to, please don't do that. Okay, leave that stuff. That's not self-care. Or if you do need to take it home, do it, but then engage in some proper self-care. Alrighty. Setting rules and schedule in the time deliberately every day for self-care. Alrighty. I wonder what your self-care schedule looks like at the moment. Okay. Recognize your warning signs that you might need self-care. So sometimes, well, in fact, this happens all too often. People come through the door and they sit down and they say, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling that, blah, 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 blah. And then straight away we go to self-care and there's none happening. Okay, there's nothing happening. They really struggle to be able to articulate what they're doing for self-care. Okay, so that's the first thing that we need to engage in. And surprisingly, as soon as people start to bring in more self-care practices into their life, their symptoms of anxiety, depression, they report back that things are starting to feel a little better. Alrighty. Yeah, and I talked a little bit about setting boundaries as well. Remember, self-care doesn't have to be taking things up. It can be letting things go. All right. So choosing not to check emails after 5 p.m. or answer the telephone after 5 p.m. or whatever it might be. Okay. No, I'm not going to be checking emails at 11:30 at night. And if your boss is asking you to do that, then I would be seriously considering that employment, because that's not healthy. That's not self-care. Okay. We are not on call 24/7. All right. Okay, if we choose to neglect our self-care, this can happen when things can get on top of us and we start to neglect our self-care. All right, it can lead to symptoms of burnout. Yeah, psychological and physical exhaustion. We're more likely to get sick. Okay, we're more likely to get colds and flus and those sorts of things when we are physically and psychologically exhausted. Alrighty, we can start to develop symptoms, or we may develop symptoms, psychological symptoms such as anxiety and depression. Okay, if we are not taking care of ourselves. I talked about illness. Our friends will point it out to us. Our partners will certainly point it out to us. Irritability, moodiness. They'll certainly point those things out for us. If we are unable to recognise it in ourselves, we might start to fall into habits of perfectionism. Okay, self-loathing, which means we get very angry at ourselves and dislike ourselves. Okay, we might fall into habits of unhelpful or, if you like, nasty self-talk. All right, those are some of the things that can happen. We might notice a breakdown in our friendships and relationships. Okay, and a loss of interest in meaningful activities. All right. Now, this self-care wheel is available on, I think it was Google, I just grabbed it from. All right. Take a moment to consider some self-care activities that could be used to nurture each aspect of self. Now, this wheel contains a whole lot of cool ideas, strategies, but you can also think of your own things that work for you, okay, with regards to self-care. Alrighty, but that wheel, it is available on, yeah, on Google Images or something like that, I think it was. All right, cool. Our little motto, freedom is realizing we are not our thoughts. Again, thank you very much for tuning in. If you have any questions with regards to the please concept or self-care, please flick me an email. Thumbs up. Please like the videos. If you like the videos, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe. Encourage others to subscribe. If you didn't like the video, just keep scrolling. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. And the last little component, oh, I haven't attached your certificate. That's really annoying, isn't it? What I'll do is I'll make sure I attach that. Alrighty, I'm sorry about that. I will definitely attach your certificate to this video as well. Thanks, everyone. Okay, I've attached your certificate now. I've put in there 45 minutes so that because I know that there's a component to this particular seminar which involved you to actually go away and perhaps have a think about as well some of your self-care practices. Alrighty, so 45 minutes. Remember, it all comes out in the wash. All right, see you guys. Thank you.